Secretary Powell, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, our customers, ladies and gentlemen. A photograph of Abu Dhabi, as it was in the 1950s, soon after the first oil concessions, and as you know it today. It never ceases to amaze me how this coastal settlement we see in these pictures grew so quickly to become this modern city we live in today. For the region as a whole, energy has been the cornerstone of the economy. And even with the diversification of industry and services, the future of the Middle East is still bound up to an extent with the future of energy. Two pictures tell a story. On the left, the state-of-the-art petrochemical production. On the right, one of the world's largest solar arrays. Both are here in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi developed its oil reserves progressively over the years and has had the foresight to set up centres of renewable energy and advanced low-carbon technologies. It is clear that the energy system of the future will not be the same as the energy system of the past. In the future, we will see oil, gas, and renewables working together with a much more integrated energy mix. MBAD wanted to understand this better and carried out this research on the future of energy and what role the financial services sector in the Gulf can play. To do this, we worked with three world-class institutions. The University of Cambridge, who have a deep understanding of energy challenges facing the world. PwC, who have an extensive experience of energy markets, the evolving landscape of energy policy in the region, plus, most importantly, the collaboration of Masdar, a hugely valuable centre of excellence sitting here on our doorstep. The report we are releasing today is a result of the work of these three partners. Financing the future of sustainable energy offers excellent opportunities for the banking sector and the financial sector in general. Some of this report's findings may surprise you, as it did me, and let me share with you some of the highlights as we see them today. In the Gulf, energy demand is set to triple in the next 20 years. Currently, the energy demand in the Gulf is growing at 3 times that of the global average. This has the potential to create a looming gap between supply and long-term demand, not only in the region, but still actually globally. Demand is likely to outstrip supply, driven by 3 powerful long-term trends: population growth and urbanization, rapid industrialization of emerging economies, and increasing commitment to control carbon intensity. Filling this gap is going to be a huge task, which will require new projects that both create, one, a huge amount of new generational capacity, and 2, improve the efficiency of energy use. This is possibly the most important. Renewable energy technologies are more advanced than many people believe. Proven track records and falling costs are the emerging themes. For example, solar PV costs have fallen dramatically, 80% in the last few years. Solar PV generation will be at price grid parity in 80% of the countries around the world within the next 2 years. In Dubai, at the end of last year, DEWA's project set a new global benchmark, a price for solar PV that is competitive with oil at $10 a barrel. This take-up of technology is likely to remain robust, even in the face of lower oil prices. Many of us wouldn't have believed that this was possible, and it has happened at a remarkable rate over the last few years. As renewable technologies have been deployed to scale globally, not only have costs fallen, but the performance of the technologies have improved. Onshore wind turbines today produce 15 times more electricity than the typical wind turbine of the early 90s. The cost of storage, of energy storage, is expected to drop to $100 per kWh in the next 5 years, against the current level of $250. So we don't need to wait. Technologies are already deployed to scale and are cost-effective and are available today. I am sure of one thing, that the technologies will only improve from here. One of the critical issues for us is the importance of energy efficiency use as part of our thinking about the future. This chart tells us that the Gulf per capita energy use is high when compared to many other economies. Saudi Arabia's per capita energy use is almost 2 times that of Germany. The UAE's per capita energy consumption is more than 5 times that of the UK. And Qatar is more than 15 times that of an emerging economy like Brazil. As yet, opportunities for energy efficiency technologies are not fully explored in the Gulf. Investment in these efficient technologies can deliver 100% payback in 5 years in some cases. An example of this is up to 20% of annual electricity and water costs can be saved from refit programs such as efficient LED lighting and fitting variable speed fans and motors. If this current pattern of energy use continues, this could negatively affect our future economic prospects. Other countries have begun, and it is now time for the Gulf to tackle these issues. We are seeing a commitment to renewables. Advances in the new technologies are showing up in investment trends already. More than half of investment in new electricity generation worldwide is now dedicated to renewables. For the past 5 years, more than $260 billion average per year have been invested in renewable technologies across the world. This is no longer about gazing into the future. This is already happening, and very soon the renewables will become an established part of the energy mix. The financing needs globally for energy is frankly huge and could well lead to a funding gap. The world is going to need somewhere in the vicinity of $48 trillion of investment in the next 20 to 25 years to feed the energy demand around the world. This investment is both driving efficiency and, just as important, building capacity. Clearly, there is a major role for the financial services sector. We believe the Gulf financial services sector has a great opportunity in energy, but it needs to take 4 specific actions. Firstly, it must understand the need for long-term finance. Firstly, policymakers and regulators must understand the need for long-term finance from banks and capital markets. We need to ensure that the current state of increased regulation, particularly around capital and liquidity, does not limit access to the financial system for project finance and corporate debt for energy companies. Secondly, the debt capital markets need to quickly get a deep understanding of the macro direction of the energy sector. This includes understanding technologies and the effect on the business models of energy companies, the viability of renewables, and the financial requirements around the energy sector's new mix. From this, the appropriate product and risk responses will be developed by capital markets and banks. The third is equity sources. They are critical in order to get the right levels of leverage and to provide the appropriate level of safety to debt holders, which in the long run will negate the need for subsidization or bailouts by governments. This is not just about private equity investors. It can include sovereigns, high net worth individuals, and of course the public markets. These equity sources need to understand the dynamics of the market, similar to what I suggested in the debt sector. It is important that the investors develop a true understanding in the new industry, as it will continue to represent opportunities in the long term. Fourthly, banks have an important role, not only in long-term finance. There is a need to develop existing trade finance products to fill the working capital gaps as renewable energy is stored and sold. Also, there is a need for the formation of new hedging products, as there will be timing differences between generation and selling of energy, which obviously forms pricing risk. These markets and products have to be developed firstly by banks through the over-the-counter methodologies before we start to get to the futures markets. In summary, the financial services sector is generally behind, but its understanding of renewable energy. But it is encouraging to see, just in the last 2 months, that US investors who invested in solar technologies are being rewarded by the market. For MBAD, this report is the start of a journey. We want to make a real contribution to helping this region to meet its own energy challenges. The region also has the potential to become a global center of excellence. We will work with others to further define the role of the financial services sector as in the development of the future of energy. The scale of the opportunity is large, maybe even massive. For MBAD, this will be a core part of our business focus in the coming years, as we advise and finance clients both on hydrocarbons and renewables. There will be a detailed session held this afternoon to give more details around this report, and I counsel some of you, all of you, to at least pop in and hear. It will amaze you. Now it's time for me to hand over to a very distinguished panel. These gentlemen bring together a wealth of expertise in oil and gas and renewables, and to discuss how we can transition to a more integrated energy system. Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all to our first panel discussion. And thank you, Alex, for putting it all into context so simply, because it is important for us to get to grips with what's really going on. How many of you are sitting here in the comfort that fossil fuels affords us and are thinking it's all going to come to an end? You see, it is going to come to an end. The era of reliance on fossil fuels will come to an end. When? We don't know. Why? How? We don't know. So it is about being prepared for that eventuality. And of course, access to energy equals stability, security, national security, your ability to plan your businesses, your lives, and so on. It's vital. So how are we going to go about it? What does the future hold specifically for this region that is so reliant on fossil fuels? Other countries in other parts of the world are weaning themselves off of it. Some cities have had 100% reliance on renewables, on alternatives. So that's not the future, that is now. Well, to find out what the future holds for energy in the region, please join me in welcoming to the stage the Deputy Chairman and CEO of Kuwait Petroleum Corporation, Nizar Chief Operating Officer of Shell Abu Dhabi, Rafi Baghdjian. The Director of Clean Energy at Masdar, Lamki. And the President and CEO of ACWA Power, Paddy Padmanathan. And just to remind you that there is a session at 3 o'clock where you can actually get to know more about the various things we're talking about here and listen to the authors of a report that we're going to refer to and be able to pose questions to them at 3 o'clock. Unfortunately, not at this session. So let us start, please. Nizar, at the end of last year, you referred to what Alex spoke about, this increasing demand for energy. You said that by 2030, peak need would more than double. And you said that you're going to fill the gap by concentrating on LNG, on gas, on oil, on fossil fuels. So is that what your company is about? It is about fossil fuels.
Let me, at the outset, thanks Alex for his kind invitation to participate in this special event along with such distinguished panelists. It's a great pleasure to be in Abu Dhabi again. Kuwait Petroleum Corporation is about creating value for the state of Kuwait, generating value and income for the state. We contribute more than 90% of the income. So the notion that we are a fossil company, we are more than that. The idea is to generate value. We import, for instance, LNG since 2007 in lieu of liquid fuels that we export. So we're trying to, it's an economical reason plus an environmental reason. There's a huge focus now on renewables, just like Alice said. We are utilizing renewables in terms of solar energy in enhanced oil recovery for our mature fields in North Kuwait and Burgan field. And we are also doing it for the environment. There are currently 100 stations that are being done. 20 will be commissioned in 2017, powered by solar. The others will follow suit. So the idea that we are a fossil fuel corporation or companies, we're not. We are more than that. We are an energy corporation. And the objective at the end of the day is to generate value for the state.
Am I on? So what is the mix moving forward then? You know, what is your strategy? Because again, everything I read was about the oil and gas strategy. I didn't see the alternative mix in there.
We have invested heavily in funds that develop technology. So we have companies that are looking at solar energy, looking at wind. We have already 2 wind farms in Kuwait. We've already signed a contract now to do enhanced oil recovery utilizing solar energy. And we are working with many other small technological firms to enhance our utilization of energy. I think Alex pointed out the need to be more efficient. And I think we need to do more in the GCC to be efficient in utilizing our energy. We, unfortunately, have taken oil and gas for granted for many years. This is a finite resource as such, so we need to take it very seriously and be able to utilize it rationally for more generation to benefit from this resource.
Okay, let's move on to Shell. Rafi, in 2009, Shell got out of various things like solar. You stayed in biofuels and you were criticized for it at the time. So where are you now? Again, is it about fossil fuels primarily for you? What is Shell? Is it an energy company? And are you embracing renewables?
Yeah, again, I should like to thank Alex, and especially for the report that was commissioned. It's great, and there are a few things that I found the report is very similar to what we're going to do in Shell. So to answer your question, you're right. I think we got out of solar, but we are still in wind. I think we have a meager 1,200 megawatt compared to others. It's not much. Mainly in the US. We are in biofuel, second generation in Brazil. And of course, to answer your question, where we're going is natural gas. So we are now more than 50% natural gas company compared to oil. And we consider natural gas as destination fuel, meaning that We would like the world to move away from heavy carbon emitters like coal, move to natural gas, and have CCS with it, carbon capture sequestration. And then if you move from coal to natural gas, you reduce 50% CO2 emissions. And then when you move gas with CCS, you remove another 90%, you reduce 90% CO2 emissions. So that's our destination fuel.
But why this aversion to things like solar?
And so for solar, again, for the moment, our CEO has just put together a group a few months ago called the Future Technology Group. And very clearly, future technology is crucial for Shell's future. So we will find out as the group progresses.
So really what you're saying is you can't tell us why it's an internal issue.
No, it's not. It's just that, it is under study. Yeah? There's a future technology group that will decide the future. For the moment, as I said, it's natural gas and more of natural gas, because we do believe in climate change. And we are, in fact, you've seen lately, we have become more vocal about climate change and CO2 management. We have in a build-up to the United Nations climate change meeting in Paris, we are going to become even more vocal. We're not going to just keep a low profile. And of course, you will hear more about what we should do in natural gas and carbon pricing.
Okay, Badr, Masdar. People sometimes think of Masdar as Masdar city, but in fact, there's a lot more to what you're doing. It has been said, and I don't know if it's true, that Abu Dhabi is the world's largest investor in alternative/renewable energy globally. You have invested a lot of money in various things around the world. Is this about pure business sense, or is it because you are thinking what's going to happen when oil runs out here? We want to have our safety net in place.
I mean, certainly the initiative behind Masdar is one that goes beyond Masdar City. It's a long-term program. It's strategic in nature, and it tackles multiple angles. On one hand, it's been launched to sustain the leadership of the UAE and Abu Dhabi in particular in the energy sector. The belief is there that hydrocarbon resources will continue for some time, but 50 years, 100 years from today, those resources will start to diminish. So the vision that has been set out today was to start from now to continue to build human capacity, expertise, so that Abu Dhabi can sustain its leadership position as a world-class energy supplier. But in doing so, we've Masdar was launched as an integrated, holistic program that tackles multiple angles, because this is an emerging sector and it has multiple challenges. So the Masdar initiative begins with people, human capacity. That's why Masdar Institute was built, so that you can attract the brightest minds out there to tackle the challenges that the renewable sector faces and bring back those brains to the market so that it can help tackle those technological challenges. We've looked at investing in technology. Hence, we've launched 2 clean tech funds, having seeds of investment in technological firms and helping those technological components to access market, but also to become more commercial. So it's growth equity funds has been created. But it's also about building renewable energy projects right here at home, but also overseas. And we are playing our role in doing so, and we have multiple footprints in the UK, in Spain, right here at home, in Jordan, within the MENA region, and the appetite is to grow our position in the sector. But the issue of energy is not only limited towards generation, but it's all about how we consume energy. So the reflection and Alex remarks, energy efficiency is also centered to what we do. Hence, Masdar City, for example, 60% of the emissions today come from cities. So the way cities will behave in the future have to also be looked at drastically and dramatically. Hence, we've decided to launch this flagship project called Masdar City to look at how we consume energy in our buildings, how we consume water in our buildings. So we believe that the renewable energy sector and sustainability at large is strategic, is long-term. It's here to sustain a legacy, but is also here to respond early on to challenges of the future.
I mean, Abu Dhabi wants to have 7% of its energy generated through alternative means, renewables, specifically, I think, by 2030. So this is all part of that plan. But I would just want to take a step away from this, and before I come to you, Paddy, and ask Nizar, Rafi, what is going on here? What are the things that are making this change happen? Is it because you realize that actually we make a lot more money selling our oil abroad than we do if we use it locally? So a place like Saudi Arabia, for example, if it continues on its current trajectory of local consumption, it'll become a net importer of oil at some point in the future. That is provided all things stay equal, which they won't. It makes a lot more money if it exports that oil. Is this what's going on in Kuwait? Is Kuwait thinking, we are losing out here because if we sell it, it's better off for the country?
That's part of it. The other part of it is environmental, because we were burning liquid fuels, high sulfur liquid fuel, diesel, oil, even in the summer at peak time. And this has a negative footprint, carbon emissions and sulfur emissions in Kuwait. So it's better off, selling these liquid fuels that will cost you $28, $29 million BTU versus gas that you're importing for $12 or $13. So there is economic benefit and there is environmental benefit. And I go back to value generation for the country itself. It's that you are substituting energy by energy, but you are benefiting in terms of value. But we have to realize here in the Gulf that we are taking oil and gas for a long time for granted. We should preserve these resources that we have and use them reasonably by eliminating subsidy or minimizing subsidy and safeguarding the low-income people, making energy more efficient, utilizing renewables. There are many measures that we need to take, and we should take these decisions today because we are better well off today. We have sovereign funds. We are in a living standard. We are a very high living standard that we can accommodate to do these investment decisions, rather than do them later on when it's enforced on us.
But that's the key, really. I mean, elsewhere in the world, this has happened already. So what I'm questioning is, what does it take for this region to really take this seriously and to bring about change? Because nothing is new. This conversation is an old conversation.
It's mindset. It's changing mindset, changing culture. And this has to have leadership and management. It has to cascade through the society. So we have to lead by example. A giant oil corporation has to do it. We have done many things in our buildings to make it energy efficient, although energy is almost 99% subsidized. But we are doing it because of corporate social responsibility and to show that we are committed to the environment.
So is it fair to say that this is the era of alliance between fossil fuels and alternatives?
It is, and I have to say, it's not the flavor of the month. We have to be systematic in it, and we have to do it for the long term. We have to be committed to it.
Okay, so Paddy, you're part of the solution, aren't you? You're bringing about energy in different ways, alternative to fossil fuels, but you are a controversial figure. You have been criticized heavily for the winning bid, the winning DEWA bid. I will hand over to you to give the audience a snapshot of where you're at and what it is I'm talking about, but also please explain to us how you are going to make money.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. The controversy is around the fact that suddenly you saw a couple of months ago out of a tender in Dubai, what has turned out to be by far the lowest tariff that has been delivered in the world for photovoltaic generated electricity. It's nothing, it's just a progression. Cost of, I think Alex pointed it out from the research work that has been done for them, cost of inputs to this energy has been coming down dramatically, driven by innovation, technological innovation. But also another point that I want to highlight, because of the very low cost of finance that we have available right now. So in this particular, if you approach pricing something like energy by looking at not seeking to market price, but look at the costs, individual costs that go to each piece of what factors the tariff and put a reasonable margin, this is what you end up with. So we had a competitive tender which delivered this tariff. Now, the exciting thing about what has happened in this particular case is that this, and I can tell you we will make money, and I've explained how the tariff has been built up. Unusually, I've even gone on public and explained the rates of return that we will be making, which is in double digit on this project with this tariff level. We're not a charitable business, we're a business. The exciting thing, though, is that it now proves, or there is a demonstration there, that it's not expensive anymore. At this rate, oil prices have to come down substantially further in order for us to deliver for the peak load. Let's not, again, get too excited. We're not going to be able to do this for everything. For the peak load, the time of the day during which your air conditioners are running at full pelt to respond to the heat of the sun. For that load, the most cost-competitive way of delivering electricity today in this part of the world, we have the resources and relatively cheap land, is photovoltaic. One of the other things that has gone unnoticed in the process, by the way, is that there is also another technology, a solar technology by the name of concentrated solar power, which is taking the heat of the sun and generating electricity, which deals with where we can store that heat in a very economic way and use it at night as well. So it's fully dispatchable, very valuable energy, which used to be priced at about 50 cents, US cents per kilowatt hour. Very quickly in the last 2 years, has been brought down to orders of magnitude of 15 cents. In fact, in December last year, we signed a contract in South Africa at 12.8 cents per kilowatt hour, first-year tariff for concentrated solar power. That's day and night. So all of a sudden, you now have the real economically feasible or cost-competitive solution for peak power and mid-merit on our daily demand curve of delivering with renewable energy. What that means is for something like, in this part of the world, the way we consume electricity, something like 40 to 50%, just about every country in this part of the world, can today be using this energy because this is the most cost-competitive way. Okay, what that does mean, happy news for my fossil fuel-based colleagues, is that we will continue to use for the foreseeable future, for the other 50 to 60%, fossil fuels. Most likely a lot of it gas, but there will be an element of nuclear, like in Abu Dhabi, and a little bit of coal for diversity purposes. But the most important thing is we will be doing this, and it is sustainable. It will happen, whether policymakers like it or not, simply because that is the most competitive way of doing it.
So, you know, on the one hand, we talk about the cost of technology coming down, say with photovoltaic. But there is a cost that is converting people from what they use at the moment to other means, so going away from fossil fuels. What is that break-even price? When you take everything into account, so not just the cost of the technology, but actually any infrastructure that needs to go into it and converting anything in situ on location.
Okay, that's a very important point, and there's a misunderstanding there. The infrastructure is there. People don't see whether it is gas that is powering their electrons that's running their fridge at the end of the day, or washing machines or cookers or lights. They just receive electricity. That infrastructure is there. The transmission network is there. The distribution network is there. As it has been shown by Germany and other countries, Iceland, many other countries that have got very high penetrations of renewables, for up to about 40%, the existing infrastructure can cope without battering an eyelid. It is as you start to get higher than 40%, 35, 40, 45, that you start having to then build quite a lot of additional capacity in terms of dealing with frequency fluctuations and so on and so forth. So we have the existing infrastructure. You can continue. As Dubai is finding out, as Abu Dhabi is already doing. They're already, okay, at very low levels. They're starting to put renewables into the system. No problem. The existing infrastructure is there. People, for the moment, will not know the difference. Because it's cost competitive, well, energy is subsidized here. What that means is that the cost of subsidy will come down because the cost of generation is lower than using fossil fuel for that segment. So that's the good news. And of course, to boot, it's less carbon intensive.
Now, one of the key factors that enabled you to do this is the cost of financing.
Yes.
So from what I understand, you were able to take out a larger loan, essentially, about 80-something%.
Yeah.
And you had 4% or less, I'm not sure, in terms of the interest you have to pay back.
Correct, yeah.
Is it a very delicate matter?
Yeah, look, it's the fact of the matter is a lot of discussion is going on around the subject today of is the low oil prices going to bring this energy revolution to a halt? In fact, my answer is, as I pointed out, oil needs to be much, much lower. And by the way, oil is not used a lot in power generation anyway, and gas is decoupled with oil. So there are very many reasons. And oil prices fluctuate, whereas the solar price, well, nobody charges for the sun, so that remains constant. So for a lot of reasons, renewables are there, and they will continue to accelerate. For me, the danger of, in the short term, of renewables having any hiccups is to do with interest rates. Indeed, we were able to attract very competitive financing in the case of the DEWA project. We were able to leverage the debt-equity ratio in this particular project. We managed to convince our lenders to accept a 14% equity and 86% of debt, which is unusual. Equity is higher priced, debt is lower priced, of course. So that gave an advantage. And indeed, you're right. Again, we've gone public to point out that we were able to get debt at below 4% all-in rate. Now, and that's because, well, the debt is priced with a base rate plus risk margins. Well, as we already know, because the signals are already starting to come from the United States, from the Fed, that base rates will go up in the short term, short to medium term. If the base rate starts moving up, if this interest rate goes up just by 1%, so the 4% becomes 5%, in order to sustain the tariff that we have delivered on the next project, we would need to bring capital cost down by 5%. Now, that is a very significant number, particularly given we have already seen we are in photovoltaic at the lower end of the cost curve. Yes, there is more innovation to come. I can see that. Yes, we can make things a bit more efficient, but it's going to take longer. So it's very likely in the next 12 to 24 months, the interest rate will go up, but we are not going to be able to bring the capex down fast enough. So that I see as the risk for slowing down, if you like, the renewables uptake. But the fact of the matter is, okay, fine. So the 5.845 cents per kilowatt will become 6.125.
Of course, your problem, though, is that you've come in at such a low bid that any little price change surely will impact you severely, but we'll leave that alone for the moment. Rafi, when it comes to your company, what are the reasons behind your decisions? Is it because you see that there is good business, good money to be made, just like we saw with Paddy here, saying there is money to be made out there? What are the reasons for your decisions?
So I think let's frame this. Today, 80% of the world energy comes from fossil fuels, and that's fossil fuels are coal, oil, and gas. 20 years ago, 80% of the world energy came from fossil fuels. According to the IEA, 20 years from now, 80% of energy will come from fossil fuels. And there are 3 million people who are in energy poverty, and they're all looking to go into energy prosperity. So for us, you know, we need Masdar, we need Paddy, we need everybody, and of course, with Kuwait, I mean, we're on the fossil fuel side, so I think you have segregated us, sort of. As I said, we will keep on fossil fuels, and that's natural gas for us because we also believe in climate change, and we also believe in moving to low carbon intensity energy. So, and we may move into solar or other, but at the moment, there is a huge amount of work to be done. And I saw the $48 trillion of infrastructure for energy that mentioned by Alex. I mean, we need everybody and everything.
Yeah, well, I don't need to defend Shell, but I can well understand what happened. Please understand, the renewable energy prices have come down to this level only dramatically in the last 24 months, okay? So I mean, Shell was there in the very early days. And to be fair, it's because of companies like Shell and it's because of countries like Germany that we are able to enjoy the price reduction, because that's what led to the innovation. That's what allowed people to come to the market, technologists to invest, and so on and so forth. So I think they were in that pioneering days when renewable energy was costing $5 per kilowatt hour, as opposed to 5.5 cents. So to be fair, I think they kind of jumped out at a particular point. I dare say, well, we'll see. I dare say they will come back in, but because they're an energy company at large.
And exactly. Can I just mention that we have the Shell scenarios, and we see the world going maybe around the end of the century, 2090 or so, to more than 80% renewable.
Yes.
Of which 40 or plus will be solar. I mean, maybe 50, I won't be around. So.
If I may just chip in here, I mean, yes. The dialogue about renewables versus hydrocarbon resources is non-founded, I think. I mean, there's a world where there's an energy mix, and there is complementary roles that each source of energy will contribute. So I think from our perspective, this is a complementary relationship. I think, first of all, are they to play their role sustainably and responsibly through initiatives such as zero flaring and energy efficiency, things that ADNOC, for example, in this country has been a leader in it, but also new forms of energy have to contribute. And actually, there is a complementary value back to hydrocarbons. By the time you provide alternative ways of producing electricity, that gas or that oil that would have been used to produce the same electron could now be either stored for production at a longer duration, so you are sustaining your hydrocarbon resources, or could be produced and sold to the international market, whereby you can fetch a higher premium on it. So there's a complementary relationship here, and both sources of energies, and each country have its own energy mix to decide upon. So there's complementary role here.
Thank you, Badr.
It is great to hear that, though, you see, because in years gone by, there's always been a distinct difference between fossil fuels and the alternatives. It's a sort of either-or, as if there's a competition that you have to choose sides. Things have changed, and at the risk of stating the obvious, we are the privileged few. You know, when you look at an image of the Earth from space, you see lights all over Earth. But actually, it's very, very sporadic in many continents like Africa. Africa is the dark continent, so there's great opportunity. So it's not just about what we need here, it's about what the globe needs and how companies like Shell or Kuwait, how the opportunities can be capitalized upon. So that's really what I'm asking you. You know, we are here now. What is it that we're going to see in the future? Are companies such as yours, Nizar, going to be major energy players that are doing what? You know, what is your company, the company of the future? What is your primary source of energy?
Well, definitely we'll have to be fossil fuels. So we'll concentrate on growing our oil production, our gas, and also our solar energy. And today we are in a climate that we see a lot of the NOCs, IOCs are shelving projects. There's about $200 billion of projects that are being delayed or canceled. And this will create more volatility coming in the future, because the decisions we make today, you'll only see 5 years from now. With the mix that Badr has said, and Fatih has said, is that once you have that mix, that will minimize the volatility in the market, because you have so many energy mixes that will compensate for lack of investment in one sector or another. So the idea to diversify the energy mix is essential. It's vital for our economies.
But you are still a fossil fuel company. I mean, that's what we're trying to get to. Are you an energy company moving forward? I'm talking about a few decades from now, perhaps. You know, what is it? What's the mentality? What's the strategy moving forward? Is it about energy, or is it about maximizing fossil fuels and adding in other bits to make up gaps?
We have a strategy for maximizing our oil production, our gas production, our petrochemical, our retail in Europe, our refining in Asia, our petrochemical in North America. So all of these opportunities, plus the local content, plus the energy and power demand within Kuwait, all of this are on board and a burden on us. We have to look at every sector of that and make sure that we generate value for the state. So part of that is the renewables, and we are working to grow that sector, although we are not experts in it. We have We have been away from it for the last 50 years. We've only looked at it recently because, as Patty said, because of the energy efficiencies and the low cost of generating that energy. It now become more feasible, more economical to do that, and the emphasis on the environment.
So can I ask each of you, please, in turn, what is it that the report, what stood out, what surprised you about what you heard? Can I start with you, Badr, please? The report that we heard that Alex was referring to, what is it that was surprising to you?
I mean, the fact that the report brings out that this is a sector worthy investing in. This is a sector, in our view, renewables have graduated from being an expensive resource to a very competitive resource. So the report brings out the growing need for energy, and whereby renewables will play an important role. And as such, it calls to me upon the lending community, the financial institutions, to also partake more aggressively in supporting the funding needs for projects. And I think the case for renewables is quite strong and appealing in the report, and it's factual today based on the numbers that we have seen most recent practices.
Rafi.
What's great was Pillar 1, where I saw the leapfrogging. You know, how the dark continent could leapfrog. And for example, if you look at Nigeria, it's about 80 million people that do not have a grid that will come next to them. And they should not invest billions of dollars to have a grid. It's better to have local solutions, maybe more of the type of solar locally. I mean, I was amazed by the Sheikh Zayed Future Energy Award that went to a Filipino NGO, where they had these plastic bottles where they put in this electrical light at night. And these are local solutions, and there'll be more. I heard from Secretary Powell about a company called Boom, and they may also in the future come with these kind of solutions we need. And hopefully we can be part of that as Shell.
So how many people here believe that investing in alternative energy makes business sense? Do you see it as a business opportunity? It'll make you money? If yes, raise your hand. Compared to other opportunities out there. It's actually the minority in the room. It's still a very tough sell for you, isn't it, Paddy?
Well, fine. That's then why this report is very important. I'm embedded in the sector. We are fuel agnostic, technology neutral, responding to the market, delivering electricity and desalinated water. We invest and operate. I, just in the last 3 years, have seen how quickly renewables are being taken up by my customers who are bulk consumers or the big bulk utilities. For me, what's important, what's very helpful about the report is that it identifies the opportunity to the financing market. It also highlights the challenge that financing market has. Renewables require a lot more money per megawatt, okay? It is very competitive, but at the same time, it delivers value, it delivers returns. That's being proven time and time again now. But it does require a lot of money. So per megawatt, typically on average, across the spectrum of renewables, it's about a 3 times multiplier. So if for an oil and gas-fired power plant, if I need $1 billion, I need $3 billion for an equivalent renewable plant. So we do need the financing markets to come on board as quickly as possible. Financial markets are extremely good at understanding or forcing us to compartmentalize risk, come up with mitigation and management plans, and so on and so forth. They're very used to fossil fuel-based energy because it's been there for a long time. What they now need to do is not get too bamboozled and frightened about the technology of renewables, spend the time in understanding that technology, and come on board with it. And while we recognize that it's tough times for them with new regulations, the challenge they have in structuring or in being able to lend for the long term, which is what we need. We need 20, 25, 27-year money. There are lots of pools of liquidity that we are not using right now. They are best equipped, the insurance industry, the pensions industry, the Islamic financial capacity. We need to be looking at, they are the best placed in order to be able to help us access that by structuring innovative solutions.
What sort of returns are you promising then?
What sort of returns are we promising? As I'm telling you, very steady, stable business. For equity investors, These are double-digit returns. I told you, I can't be any more transparent. We are investing in the Dubai project at more than 10%. Okay, that is a very, in today's world, for 27 years, guaranteed, very stable sort of technology, a very solid off-taker. That's excellent returns.
If I may just chip in, I mean, renewables does make commercial sense and has proven again and again that it is able to attract financiers as well into the industry. As early as 2008, 2009, we were able to raise debt for our projects in Spain, 3 CSP plants, one of them with the storage capability to allow it to run 24/7. In 2011, we've raised debt for our flagship project here in Abu Dhabi, Shams 1 project, and we are delighted that MBAD was also one of the syndicates that have participated in this financing. In the midst of the financial crisis in 2013, we are also were able to raise debt for our offshore project in the UK, the London Array project. So lenders are there, but the pledge towards the lenders is to become more aggressive. And if there is a notion that this technology is risky, then I think we need to have a dialogue around it, because yes, it does have, it entails an upfront, perhaps higher capital, but the O&M over the project life is rather more simple and basic. So I think it does make commercial sense, and we've been successful to work with the lending communities in our projects.
Okay, so let me just very briefly ask you to quickly interject. Nizar, the low price of oil, it hasn't impacted renewables. In the past, we saw people pulling out of renewables when the price of oil came down. Are you concerned about this? What does this mean to you? Very briefly, please. No,
we are not concerned about that, because we know that the global world economy will grow at 3.3%. Energy demand, fossil fuel, will also grow 1.1 million annually. Until 2020, it will go up to 99 million. So again, the diversification is required, and that will put less burden on us as oil producer countries, that we have a complementary energy that will supplement the energy mix.
So Richard Branson, who has invested $300 million plus in things like renewable energy, has said that, again, at the end of last year, he said that he believes that low oil prices, he was referring to $30 to $40 a barrel though, will actually take away from renewables. Shell, what do you say?
No, so the debate is, okay, renewables is now commercial. The debate is climate change. We do need renewable because of the climate issue, and we need low carbon in the atmosphere. So, and I think if we get, in order to get more renewable, it is really the best way is to have a well-adjusted carbon pricing system. You know, we, for example, in Shell, on every project, we put $40 per ton for our CO2 emissions. And if the project does not fly with that, we will not carry it on. So, so it is irrespective. The world needs more renewable because of the greenhouse gas emissions.
But you know, Richard Branson's comment was 4 months ago. Okay, that was before the 5.845 cents tariff, and that was before the 12.8 cents CSP tariff.
But
it's moving very fast.
But it's about the point that he's making, which is, in the past we've said, oh, low oil equals lack of interest in renewables. That hasn't happened this time.
No.
So he's actually saying that if it goes lower to 30 to 40, that's when it'll kick in. So the question is, will it or won't it? And really the consensus is, no, alternatives are here to stay, no matter how low you go with fossil fuels.
You've got to go to $10. And that it needs to stay at $10 for 25 years. It's not going to happen. Simple.
The fact remains, I mean, you may have short-term cyclic changes in the commodity pricing of the oil, but what is solid is the steady growth and need for energy. Yeah. There's growing populations, growing economics, there's growing industrialization. Yeah. And also in this part of the world, there is additional need for energy because of the interdependence between energy and water. 90% of water in this region comes from desalination, which is energy intensive. So the need for energy is constant, and it's in a growing trajectory. What it means, you need to respond to that. And then here comes the mix. And I think the renewables have proven that it is a solid part of that mix.
So how many people in the room look at, are responsible for, or involved in, lending money to companies like these companies, or alternative energy companies in general? How many people are responsible in decision-making? You, sir, you raised your hand. Anybody else? How many people here are involved in making a decision to loan money to companies? One?
Not many. Not many.
Very few of you. The question is, I mean, of course, Alex, you would say yes. You would lend money to a company that came to you and said, I'm an alternative energy resource.
They are lending money to us.
They are lending, exactly. But in fact, that's the key thing. You know, you've heard the arguments here. Sure, you can make a lot more money on certain things. You are saying double digits, Paddy, but you're not telling us where they lie, okay? So there is money to be made outside from various investment opportunities. However, this kind of thing is key. It'll stay. The need is there. It's not going to go away with any fad or fashion. The question is, what does it take for the finance industry to get involved? What does it take? What do you need from the industry? Rafi?
From the finance?
Generally, what do you think that needs to change in the industry to look more favorably?
I mentioned again that the real change to really accelerate more renewable and more natural gas and more carbon capture and sequestration, again, is carbon pricing. If we do not have, because we are emitting and we are emitting irrespective and nobody seems to care in the air, and then the climate change is going to hit us sooner or later. And we believe in that as Shell. So we do need, again, I repeat, and this will be, we will be vocal during the year as Shell about carbon pricing and a well-adjusted carbon pricing, not something that does not work until the UN climate change in Paris. So if you get carbon pricing right, that means you are, if we emit when we use oil or gas in our plants, we have to pay for our carbon pricing, then that money can be used for more renewable. And renewable will become cheaper because we are being taxed on what we use, you know, on our emissions. Because you emit nothing, I'll emit 50% in gas, for example.
Your comment, Nizar.
I think it takes not only the financial sector, it takes financial sector, the private sector, the government, the oil companies to work together to make sure that this diversification of energy that Alex alluded to is there to stay, especially in the GCC. As Badr was saying, there's enormous growth here and requirements for power and water, and we need desperately to diversify our energy mix in the future. It should not be taken for granted the amount of liquid fuel we're burning today in our plants. It's unheard of, and it's not sustainable.
And just to give you a comparison, you know, figures out of this part of the world are very hard to come by a lot of the time, but I don't know if many of you are familiar with the Rocky Mountain Institute, but it does a lot of work in the energy field. This for the US, of course. Buildings consume 42% of the nation's energy and 72% of its electricity. Fossil fuels generate 70% of the nation's electricity. The US burns 13 million barrels of oil a day. That's 3/4 of its total oil use on transport. And industry generates more than 40% of the country's GDP, employs almost 20 million people, and so on and so forth. And that is the place where you can affect a lot of change. So really key to this is policy, isn't it? It is about government saying, right, any new build is going to be alternative energy focused, that sort of thing. This has happened elsewhere in the world. But the question for you in the room is, are you going to wait until it's mandated, or are you going to bring about change because of a deliberate policy that is born from within your corporate entities? Paddy, what do you say to people?
Look, as I said to you, at the end of the day, what is the only thing that is sustainable, that will survive the test of time, is if it is cost competitive or if it's efficient. And renewable energy is now starting to come in, and I'm utterly convinced that it will continue to start getting attracted more and more into the energy mix, and it will be a matter of time before we just accept it as I'm utterly convinced in 10 years' time, we will think back and say, you know what, 2014-15 was actually the transition year. When renewable energy came into the mainstream, it was no longer an alternative energy. That it's just one of the components in the energy mix.
And the last word is to you, Badr. What would you say to the people here in this room?
I mean, what I've been saying all along, renewables are here to stay. Renewables do make commercial sense. It does take a holistic view about it. It requires an integrated policy. It requires developers who are sharp in their business. It requires also the lending community to come forward and also help bridge that funding requirement. And it requires people, brains of our future generation, to also contribute into the sector. And I believe it will only sustain because it's founded on commercial basis. If it is founded on different basis, it will not be sustainable long term.
Correct.
So really, the bottom line is we are all in this together. We need energy to move forward, and it's about energy, no matter where it comes from. I suppose the issue is, how do we get our minds away from the dependence on fossil fuels that we're so very comfortable with? You are a vital part of that change if you make things, finance, money especially, more available to people who have great ideas, but perhaps unproven technology, then things will change a bit faster. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.